Welcome, everybody, to the Harsch Review. We're a film and TV podcast hosted by yours truly, Sean, and with me is my lovely brother, Ryan.
Aw. Hey, everybody.
Hey.
Hey,
Brother Ryan.
what's up, bro?
How you doing?
Hey, I'm good.
Yeah, episode 40. We made it.
Yeah, it's a big deal where we come from.
Well, I figured I'd either hate your guts by now or it'd be exactly where we're at, so
Yeah,
we made
we're
it.
doing all right. We made it.
Yeah, we're doing all right. How's your week been?
Good. I was in Colorado recently to see the last 3 shows of the Fish PH tour.
Hippie!
Yeah, right? Well, there were a lot of those, not me, but...
Did you have any hard time finding any soap out there?
Yeah, it was basically a scarcity, so...
Yeah.
But,
Nice.
You know, a lot of interesting things happen at these shows, especially if you're camping for a couple days, which we were doing. You see a lot of interesting people that are kind of fringe on the scene. You don't know if they really even follow the band or like the band, follow their music. It's just we met a lot of people from different parts of the country that were kind of just traveling around and financing their lives by selling posters, selling drugs, selling koozies for cups, you name it. So you always bump into people like those, nice people and everything, but it's just they've kind of given up, joined the circus, and that's why they make their livelihood. So
yeah, that's tough because it always reminds me, going to the Fish shows or any show that has that kind of gypsy-esque, following, which is actually, yeah, I would agree. They're not really people that are fans of the band. They're just taking advantage of the economy. Always kind of reminds me of like just going back in time to like your little local bazaar out in the desert, where everyone's just trading spices and goods just to get by. It's the same thing. It hasn't changed. So yeah, that's a little odd. I mean, thank God that's not what I have to do to get by, but
yeah.
Hey,
and
more power to them, I guess.
Probably the downside of these, I guess it's a festival. I mean, it's a 3-day thing. It wasn't billed as a festival, but you have porta potties that after day 3, it's reaching like DEFCON 4 in terms of everything that's going on with those porta potties.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
Things I don't want to describe on the podcast, but I think probably the most interesting thing that happened to me this weekend was I heard a couple getting it on in one of the porta potties.
Jeez.
Yeah, like waiting in line, and then you had a little like sideshow, and then they come out and everybody gives them a big round of applause. Didn't know why they were in there, but yeah, that was
that's interesting.
Yeah. Saw another guy camping a couple rows down from us with no tent. He just had like all of his stuff laid out in little bags and not even a receptacle to like carry everything in. So it was like he was sleeping out there under the stars, and all his stuff was in little plastic bags, and he was just always like rifling through them to find stuff. So that was interesting.
Did you see any poop tents?
Not this time, but I've heard about the poop tent, and I've woe to the man who has to clean that up.
Yeah,
like after these shows, I mean, we have to vacate the lots at noon, so a lot of people, they fly in and they just like run to Walmart or some cheapo camping depot and pick up just whatever, and then they don't bring it back with them. They just kind of leave it there. So I've never stayed on the camping grounds until after they close, but I guess from like 12 to 12:30, it's just open season. So you got tents, you got, sleeping bags, tarps, whatever you want to grab. It's just laying there. No one's, claiming them or anything. So
yeah, people are slobs, man. That's disgusting.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And it really kind of makes the place look bad. I mean, God bless them. The maintenance people were doing the best they could, but a lot of people are just, it just seems like they're not really eco-friendly, even though they're expounding those, hey man, but then it's like they're throwing beer bottles or beer cans and stuff all over the ground. So kind of a double standard.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I'm glad you had some fun out there.
Great.
Good shows.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, great shows.
Nice. Well, we're glad to have you back as we kick off a whole new season here with the Harsch Review, episode 40. So I figured we'd talk about movies that are 40 years old just for a few minutes, not to bore the hell out of everybody.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
So
There's some good ones.
Yeah, so enlighten me. What was around 40 years ago? What was the hotness out in the theaters?
Well, we would have been talking about 1978, and we had quite an impressive list. I don't know. What were you doing in 1978, Sean?
I was swimming around in somebody's balls.
Okay, nice.
I don't know.
Great place to be. Yeah, I was 1 year old, so
Yeah.
it's the frame of reference for how old I am. But I pulled up a list here. One of the impressive ones, well, to me, is Up in Smoke. Do you know this movie?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Do you know any lines from this movie?
Dave's not here.
Yeah, that's from one of the records. I don't know if that's on the
I think it is.
in the movie. Okay.
I think it was in that little ice cream truck or something out front, and then
Oh yeah,
right.
yeah. One of my favorite parts of the movie is when the dad's like chewing out, Chong in the beginning.
Uh-huh.
You know what I'm talking about?
I don't remember the quotes.
All right, I don't want to go through it with you right now, but only if you remember him, it might not fall well. But that was a good one. We had Jaws 2.
Ooh, that's right. They came out right away with that one.
Yeah, pretty quick. Not as good as the first one. I don't know why.
Yeah.
But
Can you believe that Jaws 2, made $102 million?
that's crazy, right?
They were cashing in on that.
Yeah, I guess Spielberg just said no, thank you, and then they just went ahead and did four more of them, or three more of them. So
Yeah, that's
yeah,
terrible.
Jaws 2. We had Animal House.
That's right, Animal House.
Yeah, it's decent. It doesn't really hold up that much to me currently. There's funny scenes in it. It's just not really. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm good on that one.
Yeah,
It had its moments, but I know you had some connection to that, didn't you?
Yeah, I was in a fraternity in college, and I think a lot of, I don't know if this was definitely not true, but I think one of the big hooks was like a lot of the brothers would say, yeah, they filmed Animal House at our fraternity. After living there for a while, I'm like, no, they didn't. Like, what are you talking about? This is, you didn't film it there. I think it's just one of the big hooks. I believe it was filmed in Oregon somewhere. So, yeah, but it's kind of a movie of its time, but it not really doesn't really hold up today.
Huh.
Right?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, other than a couple of the individual comedic performances within and a few little quotable moments, it's almost kind of like their anchor man of the day or something like that,
Sure.
They're old school of the day. And so I'm sure with the older generation, it was probably teenagers when that movie came out. It's still pretty rad, but if you miss that window, it doesn't really offer a whole lot for a modern audience.
Sure.
But yeah, I'm with you on that one.
Yeah. Let's see, a couple more. Superman. So the first Superman came out in 1978, 40 years ago. Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. I don't know if you've seen that one. I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, I've seen the poster for it. Superman.
Yeah,
that was
about it.
one of the first big blockbuster superhero movies, $134 million back in 40 years ago.
Ooh.
Yeah.
How'd Attack of the Killer Tomatoes do?
Oh my goodness. Let me see
Probably
where
not
that's
that
at.
much.
I have the list here. I don't even Invasion of the Body Snatches.
Hey.
I don't even see it on this list, and I only have like the top 42, so clearly wasn't doing too well.
Yeah, not that great. Every Which Way But Loose.
Well,
you know about that one?
I don't.
It's where Clint Eastwood has this like orangutan, and he goes.
That's that movie.
And then when Clint goes out to the bar at night and gets loaded, so like the orangutan drives him home. But he's a very sassy orangutan. He doesn't
that's
take shit
like
from anybody.
When Clint started doing those kinds of movies, is equivalent to like De Niro doing the types of movies he's doing now.
Meet the Parents type stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of funny though.
So, what was the number one movie of '78?
I would have to venture either National Lampoon's Animal House or Superman.
No, it was Grease.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. National Lampoon's was second. Superman was 3. Every Which Way But Loose was 4. Jaws 2 was 5. And then we got like Heaven Can Wait, Hoopa, Halloween, Convoy.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, there's another one in there that I saw, and it had Harrison Ford and what's his head from Jaws, Robert Shaw.
Oh, would that be Guns of Navarone or something?
Oh, I don't know. Let me see. I saw it earlier when I was looking at it. Force 10 from Navarone.
That's it. Yeah.
I was like, wow, that's an interesting connection. I didn't know that those ones were in it, but
yeah,
not going to watch it. Maybe.
Yeah, it's like a World War II movie. It's whatever. I mean, if you like those kind of movies.
And there's some movies on here I've never even. I mean, Midnight Express. I've heard of that.
Yeah, Wild Geese.
Yeah, Wild Geese.
Yeah.
I mean, all right, Beyond and Back, same time next year. Fist.
I spit on your grave.
Yeah,
You see
Death
that
on
one?
the Nile.
Yes.
I don't know.
The 36th Chamber of the Master Killer. I know that movie. That's
yeah, I don't know.
yeah,
movies
36th
just
Chamber
for-
of the Shaolin. Yeah, that inspired the Wu-Tang Clan.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Halloween.
Go tell the
That was out.
Spartans. Yeah.
Halloween.
Deer Hunter. Have you seen that one?
Yeah, it's been a while. Walking.
Yeah, it's a good movie. Yep.
That's got the Russian roulette scene in it, right?
It's pretty intense.
Yeah, that's a good scene.
Yeah.
So those movies are 40 years old, and they a handful of them are still pretty decent or relevant, but we've come a long way, and so have we. So very thankful to everybody for sticking around with us if you've been around for all 40, and if you're new to the podcast, welcome. Hopefully the next 40 will be even more exciting than the last.
Yes.
So, all right, let's move on. I know it's been about a week and a half since we've talked. Any news stories catch your eye? There's not a whole lot going on out there.
Yeah, I mean, just the usual. Of course, Avengers. We have Avengers 4 being shot right now, and then there's of course the reshoots. So they shoot stuff and then they go back to the reshoot. So we got an image from the reshoot. Not much like to talk about. It's just whenever like little stuff trickles out of these productions and everybody's just, oh, we have a picture from the reshoot, but there's not really much going on in the background. It's just, so this one has it's the picture of one of the Russo brothers with Nem.
Gotcha. Okay.
You know what Nem is?
Nem.
NEM.
No.
He's apparently like a excuse me, an Avengers super fan. He saw Infinity War like 50 times in a row or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he just watched it like several times.
A real person?
Yeah, a real dude. Like his story kind of went to Marvel Studios, and then the Russos actually reached out to him and invited him to a big red carpet premiere of Avengers 4 next year. So he's kind of he's got his 15 minutes of fame there.
Yeah, good for him.
Yeah, and then they also invited him to visit the set in Atlanta. So so we got like a little picture of that going on, and then green screen in the background. Apparently Jeremy Renner has also released some kind of photograph from the Avengers. So looking forward to it.
Right on.
Aren't you?
I mean, I am. I mean, it's still a ways out, so
Yeah.
my excitement will come. I think I usually don't get too excited anymore for anything. It has to be a few weeks out. Then I'm like, oh, this is going to happen. Sweet. Looking forward to this. But in the meantime, I'm just patient, kind of cruising along.
Yeah.
Live in the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
but it'll be fun when it does come out.
Okay. Got another movie that's coming out fairly soon. This one's about one of my favorite artists, Vincent van Gogh.
Really?
Any guesses? Yeah, I guess any guesses as to who's playing?
God, I have no idea what he looks like.
Yeah.
Give me a hint.
He's in Platoon. He's a very odd character, the Boondock
William
Saints.
Dafoe?
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so he looks pretty good. Like he looks a lot like if you've seen pictures of Van Gogh, like Van Gogh did a lot of self-portraits. So he looks pretty good. It's directed by Julian Schnabel, who's another artist. He did The Diving Bell and The Butterfly, which I thought was a great film.
Yeah.
And also it's starring Oscar Isaac as Paul Gauguin, who's another artist of the time, and then also stars our favorite Mads Mikkelsen.
Ah, good old Mads.
Mads.
Paying the bills?
Yeah. So, check out the trailer. It's called At Eternity's Gates. It's going to make a appearance at a film festival on October 12th. I mean, we probably won't see it till, December, January in regular theaters, but it looks like probably like an Oscar type film. So we're starting to see these Oscar contender films coming out around this time because it's the summer for the blockbusters. The stuff before that, a lot of people don't remember. And then it's usually September on up to December, early January, where we see the Oscar-worthy films.
Gotcha.
Not that every film isn't Oscar-worthy, but
now with this new popularity category, everything qualifies.
Yeah, which may or may not happen. So
yeah, we'll see.
I'm looking forward to this one. It looks pretty good.
Nice.
I got something else here. It's a very lengthy article, so I'm not going to get into the whole thing. I think I'm going to post this on our Facebook page because it's a great read. It involves Jim Carrey, so it's a lot of stuff about Jim Carrey. Basically, he's working on a new show that's going to be out by the time this podcast airs on Showtime. And the show is called Kidding, and it's a regular show. It has Jim Carrey playing Jeff Pickles, who is a Mr. Rogers-like children's TV host whose personal life is in free fall.
Yeah, I've seen some of the trailers for it.
Yeah. So, looks pretty interesting. And then, like, in the article, which is definitely worth reading, it goes into a lot of, like, Jim Carrey and just how, like, he's really, like, a complex dude. I mean, I don't know if you've seen interviews with him in maybe the last 5 years or whatever, but this is kind of looking like one of the darkest things he's ever done, and I include Cable Guy in that. And simply because he's really grappling with some dark emotions right now. One of the things that he said that really stood out to me was that I don't have a crisis anymore. I know I don't exist. When he was asked if he was experiencing some kind of existential crisis or something like that.
Sure.
So we do know, like, he had a girlfriend a little while back that committed suicide with some drugs.
His drugs.
Yeah, right. And that was kind of that was one of the allegations from the family, but the charges were later dropped. So yeah, he's going through like a lot of like these personal struggles. He's 56 years old. He could be very like funny. This is the article, very funny one moment and then very intense the next moment. If you've seen excellent documentary on Man on the Moon on Netflix, it has a lot of these like contemporary interviews with Carrey, very like deep guy. I think he might have dabbled in like psychedelics recently. Have you heard that rumor?
I have.
Yeah, so might have kind of put him into like a different frame of mind, but I'll post this up. It's interesting.
Yeah, he's got a very interesting. I think I saw it on YouTube. To be honest, there's like a little documentary short about him as an artist, and he's a very talented artist. And his studio and how he's been spending most of his recent time just expressing himself through paintings and art. Really big creative pieces. It's really cool to see. But he has kind of been, as I guess mainstream folks would see him, as a little kooky or gotten a little bit weird. But then there's a whole other class that just says that he's, I guess as you would say, awoken. And what we essentially mean by that is very much along the lines like with somebody like Ram Dass and the spiritual awakening type of mentality, where you kind of realize, that life is only in this present moment. There's no future or past. It's all an illusion. And therefore, as long as you stay in the present moment, you kind of become one with the universe. That's just the real quick way to kind of describe it. So he's somebody who's put a lot of time and energy into chasing that. Very much like you'd hear from somebody like Eckhart Tolle or other folks that are maybe a little bit more campy, like Deepak or whatever, that they sell that type of thing as a product that doesn't have the same authenticity as other spiritual leaders. So a lot of what he says is not necessarily unique to him. You'll hear that from that type of more new age audience. So that's kind of where his headspace has been.
Yeah.
So I'd say he's not crazy. He's just no longer cares about expressing what he truly feels. And regardless if you do or do not agree with him, it's definitely an interesting conversation.
Yeah, and I mean, he's to me, he's still like a great actor. I mean, and we kind of grew up on him, both of us, just kind of watching him develop. Much like if you're a little older in the '80s, you would have seen that with Robin Williams. With Jim Carrey, it's like you haven't really seen him do anything in a while, so it's just a lot of people are curious, like what have you been up to, kind of thing. But it's he is coming back with his show, so it's on Showtime. So much like the Sacha Baron Cohen show, you have to kind of wait around a bit to see,
Yeah.
I guess when the show was done. But
well, he's a guy who at one point in the 90s was the highest paid actor, and he just made boatloads of money, but then got typecast into only very specific things. And so when he tried to branch out and tried to break out of that, you could actually see his potential. But essentially the movie industry would not really let him go that direction, or he just wasn't getting cast in that kind of direction because people were not ready to see America's funny man be serious. It's very similar with with Robin Williams' struggles. And then eventually at the point when everyone's moved on, that's kind of when he kind of took a step back, which I think was the right decision for him to make. I mean, Eternal Sunshine for the Spotless Mind is, probably one of his best films.
I think so.
But when he taps into that emotional side, the darker psychosis, like you might even see like in the Truman Show's pretty dark. And that's where you kind of can see him at his best. And yeah, you're right. The documentary that you talked about really gives you insight into just his persona and why he, how he turns it on to make people laugh, and how really I think that what he was saying in that documentary is that is a character that's not who he is. He's playing that character, and eventually at some point, like he had a hard time identifying between his true self, like who he is, versus that persona he plays. And there's like this internal struggle, this internal war. And it takes a long time to kind of like sort that out. Because he was spending 90% of his life in character and kind of lose touch with who you really are. So, kind of interesting.
Especially as, I mean, if you want to contrast that with like Daniel Day-Lewis, who's like this method actor, it just seems like he can shut it off between roles. Right? I mean, like he'll do Lincoln, then he'll do this, and then he'll like go from one thing to another. Contrast that with Carrey, like with Jim Carrey's in a unique position where he is a comedian. So it's like people are always going to expect him to be funny or to do something funny. And then unfortunately, when he tries some kind of dramatic thing or something a little darker, then everyone's kind of like, oh, what's going on? So
no, absolutely.
I think he'd have a lot more of a struggle than, say, like a Daniel Day-Lewis kind of method acting thing than most others.
Sure. But to that point, I read an article or an interview with Daniel Day-Lewis when he talks about that method approach. And he says the reason why he has to take off at least a year after he does a movie is because he's going through the mourning process of watching this character die. And he says he ends up missing that persona, and it's this whole like struggle that he has to go through because he played and became this other person essentially for such a long period of time that it takes him a while to find his feet again. And that was why he doesn't do movies that frequently, because he only knows how to go 110%. So by the time you come out of it, it's like waking up off of a drug and then realizing you're somebody else. And it just takes him a while to remap his mind and then get ready to have enough, stability before you're ready to take on some other mentality.
Like some of those characters he plays, like you're okay with him dying,
Yeah, like, you're like,
Daniel,
I'm good. I'm
Daniel
good.
playing for you, or Phantom Thread guy.
Yeah, Phantom Thread guy.
You're like, We
Time
could
to
do
move
without
on.
you. We could do without you in the world, sir.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. So
It's
that's
just interesting discussion. Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Good topic.
Yeah, it's a great article. New York Times has some really good in-depth stuff. So I'll be posting this by the time this podcast is out. It'll be up on our Facebook. So
Cool.
yeah, Jim Carrey. One more quick thing. Thundercats.
Oh,
Yeah. So there's a little denial going on here that Netflix is having an action movie coming out called Six Underground. And Ryan Reynolds, one of the stars, is officially denying that it's actually a cover for a live-action Thundercats movie. He calls the rumors, quote-unquote, ridiculous. He is starring in this film. It is directed by none other than Michael Bay. And so, this was published in a story that said that these were true rumors that it would indeed be a Thundercats film. So it's kind of interesting to see that. We're going to get a Thundercats movie. I could care less, but,
who wants a Thundercats movie?
Right. We might as well get like a Voltron movie.
Even when they were out, it was still like, yeah, I'm just going to go with He-Man,
Right.
I don't know. Thundercats is kind of super 80s. So if they're going to do it, it's going to be all like modern and they're all going to look like real. I don't know.
It's SAT analogy time. Thundercats is to He-Man as what is to G.I. Joe? Sean?
Oh, Mask?
Very good, Sean.
Mask.
That's kind of what I looked at it as. So
Yeah, I know.
yeah,
Cash
that's
grab.
true though. It's just file this away in the who gives a shit news category.
I mean, unless it gets like the Michael Bay treatment where, Transformers was a much more popular franchise than Thundercats. Even G.I. Joe was, but that was a problem with the G.I. Joe movies is they abandoned all like the characters and the charisma and they made it modern. If they kept it like the cartoons, but just did a live action version of that where everybody had their stereotypes and their, all their weird little costumes and stuff like that, it could have been rad.
Sure.
But no, it was like modern. It was like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, and apparently they're making another one. So let's keep cranking these out. More cartoons and toys become movies because we're running out of ideas, right?
Yeah, no kidding.
What's next?
Yeah.
So that's it on my end for news.
Oh, sweet. Well, I've only got a couple things here. Won't take up too much time. So let's see. The Witcher, right? You heard of the video game The Witcher? Pretty rad game. I've probably only sunk about a dozen hours into it. You would probably really like it, where it's essentially kind of like, I know this isn't the best description, but it's kind of like a medieval Sherlock Holmes, so to speak, where he, is hunting down vampires and all kinds of stuff like that. He's got, I really should have done my research on this one, but he's
you're doing all right.
It's a really cool game because it's kind of open world, and it follows the main character who's kind of like this old grizzled dude with white hair pulled back. Geralt, I think is what his character's name is.
Geralt Butler?
Yeah, Geralt of Rivia. He's basically like just a monster hunter kind of thing. And so it takes place like in a very medieval thing. I mean, you've got humans, elves, dwarves. There's monsters that are kind of like in their world or in the continent. It's kind of got like the Game of Thrones-esque Lord of the Rings type of setting, but it doesn't feel fantasy. So that's what also makes it kind of cool. So he basically gets hired for commissions and stuff like that, and you got to kind of go out. At least from the time I played the game, and you go out and you're just like a Sherlock Holmes, where he picks up the environment and finds clues, and you got to solve those things. And there's a lot of cool gameplay and action. But it's a really popular series, really cool theme, very fun game. I wish I had more time to just kind of dive into it because it looks like you could drop hundreds of hours into it easily. Anyways, where am I going with this? Superman, Henry Cavill, Mr. Mustache. He's going to be playing The Witcher in the Netflix developed series that will be coming out. And I'm really excited for it because I like the franchise. I failed at playing it longer. But it'd be really cool to see that storytelling, that setting, like kind of brought to the big screen. I like Henry Cavill as far as like the persona he plays.
Yeah.
Doesn't have a huge dynamic range, which I don't think is necessary. I guess the only thing for me is, Geralt seems more like a Liam Neeson type of character, somebody who's much older and, grizzled, I guess. So
Sure.
there's going to have to be, I guess, either they're going to make it at an earlier point in his life, or they're going to do some makeup and some things like that to kind of bring him more to the current persona. So that's a good development. It's a big star to get for a Netflix developed series.
Yeah, good for them.
Yeah. So that's kind of, and then the last thing is a band that I know you and I both really like, Tenacious D. They've got a new album and animated series coming out.
Oh, cool.
It's called Post Apocalypto, because I guess their last album, Apocalypto, sucked. Dave Grohl's going to be playing all on the album, so that's a nice little tie. And then Jack Black is doing a 6-part animated series that he is drawing every frame he drew himself, and him and Kyle Gass are doing all the voice work for it. So the episodes feature new music from them and will be available on digital platforms like each week. So the synopsis for the show is: Post-Apocalypto finds Tenacious D thrust into a world of complete and utter destruction following the drop of an atomic bomb. Surviving the attack in classic cinematic fashion, a good old imperishable 1950s refrigerator, the duo quickly learns that the new forms of evil have spawned from the blast. One thing becomes apparent. That's what it says. That's how they survived. I guess it's like a ripoff of like the Indiana Jones thing, where
nice.
Right.
Okay.
So one thing becomes apparent: for humanity to prevail, Tenacious D must save the world. So the track list here, which might give you a little bit of insight into, the theme of this album, is the post-apocalyptic theme: desolation, hope, cave woman, making love, scientists, take us into space, I've got to go, fuck yo-yo ma, reunion, not so fast, daddy ding dong, chainsaw bazooka machine gun, robot march, turd whistle, colors, who's your daddy,
Colors.
yeah, JB Junior rap, woman time, save the world, and then post-apocalyptic theme reprise.
Woman time. I love it. Where can I get my copy?
Yeah, I don't know when it comes out, so it's supposed to be coming out real soon here. Let me see, November 2nd. There we go.
Tenacious D was one of those things, like a little bit before it became available on DVD. Like I remember having a VHS tape of it, and so it's like I had that and Mr. Show, so it was one of those things you'd kind of loan out to people and maybe never see again, or like just kind of have it with you and show it to somebody and take it with you when you leave. So very funny. I love it. When it came out, I still like it. So glad to hear this.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think I was a big fan of Tenacious D. I know we used to play their songs.
Yeah.
Never saw Jack Black becoming the star that he did based off of where they were then, but it's pretty cool to see that he still goes back and does Tenacious D stuff.
Yeah.
So hopefully it's good. Looking forward to it, but not holding my breath here.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely showcases his musical talent and his artistic talent. So.
Well, and it's also, yeah, I mean, also think about like, I know DreamWorks, Kung Fu Panda in that whole shot, and the kind of movies that he gets cast into, but then like the time of things he sings about and does, where you could see like, what if he was on Disney? Like there's no way it's going to happen. They're not going to let him be himself.
No.
So I think it's pretty cool that he still goes back to his roots with that stuff.
Yeah.
Sweet. All right. Well, that's what I've got this week. So before we get into our main topics, anything you've been watching recently? Any shows or movies you want to throw out there?
Yeah. We have our viewer challenge. Did you watch yours, Sean?
No, I did not.
All right. So we'll save that for another time.
Yeah, I actually was going to queue it up, but I'll give you more insight into what happened.
Okay. No problem. Off the record.
No, I'll tell you when when it's my turn.
Oh, okay. Well, one thing I've really been watching, this is pretty much my only one currently, is Ozark, which recently debuted with a season 2. And I don't know, I really, really like this show. It's very compelling. One of my buddies on Facebook, I'll give a shout out, Sean McCusker, said Ozark makes the movie It look like a tea party. That's kind of paraphrasing, but
Interesting.
yeah, because I mean, there's a lot of stuff in Ozark that's very dark and kind of horrific at points. It's just really kind of building tension, and at times it makes Breaking Bad look, kind of pale in comparison, even though that's a great show too. But I'm about halfway through it. I want to see what you think of it, Sean.
Yeah, I would say I'm probably four or five in so far, season 2. I like the show. I like the casting and the characters they have.
Right.
I wasn't really sure where they're going to take it, but they added a whole new, it's following that Breaking Bad formula where they're adding new layers, new characters, different people that have their motivation. So you definitely have kind of like 5 different driving forces that all kind of clash and collide in the Ozark, so to speak. And so for me, it's almost like the tension's getting a little bit too nuts, where they're adding a lot very quickly. And so it's a little hard to kind of keep pace because it's moving much faster than the first season did.
Yeah, it's true.
Which is not a bad thing per se, but they haven't released any of this tension and stuff like that. I do like they have that creepy cop that was in Twin Peaks.
Oh yeah.
He's great. They've added in extra characters on like the cartel side. They've added, characters that are on the hillbilly side. So political, law enforcement, like all these things are kind of coming together. I guess the only thing for me is I would say the only critique I have about it is that the synopsis of the motivation that's driving the characters, while it's presented as like a way out, right? Like that's how they ended season 1. Like, we need to build a casino to get out, right?
Yeah.
It seems like it's just almost a little too far fetched. So
yeah,
I don't know.
It could be like a Trojan horse for something else, or setting it up for, but it's one of these shows where, unlike Breaking Bad, where it has a lot of the layers, I don't see Ozark going for more than a couple seasons, and that's fine. Because stories like this are relatively self-contained, and there's only a matter of time before characters like this kind of self-destruct or piss off the wrong people and end up dead. So yeah, I feel you. I'm almost done with episode 4 actually, and it's kind of like, okay, what's going on here? What's happening? I don't want to give away too much, but I really do like what I see. I think Bateman and Laura Linney are great. Like just their dynamic together, and then when they're doing their own thing, it's great to see those two playing roles like this.
Yeah, but I do think that it has 5 seasons worth of staying power. Because if they follow a Breaking Bad format, for example, which I think this show is doing, that kind of started off introducing you to Walt and his motivations for getting into cooking meth. And that's all it was just a means to an end. It's just, I just need to make money for my family because I'm not going to be around. And then he kind of discovered that he loves it. And so in this one, you kind of start to see Jason Bateman kind of have a little bit more, like, he's now desensitized, right? So he's not reacting to anything the way he used to. And he has said a couple times, like, I'm really good at managing money. I'm really good at doing X, Y, or Z. So I think that he's either going to go the Walt side where he starts to inherit power and then starts to realize he has that power. Or he's going to go the Jesse side where you're kind of stuck and you're trapped and you can't get out. That's where he's kind of at now.
Right.
So his motivations are, he doesn't want to get involved in all these things. He's in this situation and he's trying to find a way out. I think that could very well change. So I don't know. I feel like he could flip from being this just neutral kind of guy, because he's been pretty neutral, and very business and just a matter of the fact, to actually, a catalyst for a lot of things.
Yeah.
So we'll see. It's really interesting, though. It has a lot of potential to go in many different directions.
Yeah, I think it's probably one of the best shows on Netflix right now. So check it out.
Hands down, absolutely.
Yep. So that's pretty much all I've been watching. I do assure you that the next time we record, I'll have some more stuff in my docket.
Well, I'm sure everybody's just fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the pressure about doing this kind of show is having something to watch to talk about, so trying to keep it fresh. So yeah, I went to go watch the movie challenge movie, and while I was on my phone trying to search for it, and I was like, where's it at? Is it on Netflix? No. Is it on Amazon? It's on iTunes. I got to rent it. But in that process, I came across like a clip of No Country for Old Men. Is Llewellyn here? No. Did you see the trailer? Yeah.
Where does Llewellyn work?
Where does he work?
Where does he work?
I can't. It's private information. Where does he work?
Call it. You've been calling it your whole life.
Yeah. So I saw that scene. So I went and watched those two scenes. I was like, I just got to see those scenes real quick. And then I ended up watching the whole movie.
It's a great movie.
Yeah, it is. But I kind of picked up on a couple things this time around. From the first time, I mean, it's been a few years since I've seen it. I've seen it a couple times already. This is probably my fourth or fifth. But the way that they just write Llewellyn out, right? I didn't realize that he's just gone. And
that's kind of in the book too. The book pretty much follows the movie, exactly how it is. So that's a great adaptation. It's one of the only Coen Brothers book adaptations. And the guy who wrote the book, he's known for really dark shit. So he wrote The Road as well. He's written some other stuff.
McCarthy, or what's his name?
Cormac McCarthy. Yeah. Who kind of he lived in destitution for a lot of his life until The Road, and then Oprah brought that out as Book of the Month Club, and then he got a little more prestige. But he's a great writer. I mean, deals with some really heavy topics, but my interpretation of that is that character is just kind of almost like a ghost. He just kind of comes in and leaves and goes. So he really kind of represents more of a metaphorical force, I guess you can say, and not so much a character.
Which guy are you talking about?
Llewellyn.
He's a ghost?
Oh, wait. Okay, sorry. I gotta back up. Okay. Forget everything I just said.
Yeah. No, I know what you're going, though. You're basically saying because he just, in the car crash to the end, what's his name?
Yeah.
He just walks away.
Anton Chigurh. Okay, yeah. So that's kind of my interpretation of that guy, where he's just kind of like a ghost and he just kind of comes in and does his stuff. But yeah, you're right. With Llewellyn, it's just they don't really show exactly what happens to him.
It's just like the cartel just showed up at the place and you don't know where the money went or any of that kind of stuff.
Right. And the book doesn't really cover that either. So it seems almost incidental based on that. But yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Yeah. So I thought it was just interesting because you don't show you his body or anything like that. You just see and then Tommy Lee's just kind of he's dead. So you don't really have any context or anything like that what's going on. And then it just shifts gears right into that next phase, where it brings the sheriff kind of back into it. But the other part I thought was interesting was why he drove his truck out there to go give water to that guy. And that's kind of what got him all wrapped up into it. And so he was saying I'm about to make a stupid decision. If I don't come back, tell my mom I love her. And he's like, well, your mom's dead. And he's like, well, I'll tell her myself. Right. So it was just interesting to me that's the only weakness he's shown during the movie, where he just made nothing but really clever decisions in the rest of the movie. I just kind of was interesting to me. Why would he go back there? You kind of know it's not going to work out.
A death wish.
Yeah. I just didn't really understand, it was a little too early in knowing his character. Was he just feeling guilty or sorry for that guy or what? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. And this movie kind of, in the Coen universe, kind of locks up for me with Fargo season 2, because they both pretty much take place in the same era, so 1980, and they both deal with some people who are Vietnam vets. So kind of interesting, and even in the way it's shot, they look a little bit similar. Couple things in No Country 2 is the complete absence of music in the whole movie.
That's true.
the whole film, like no music whatsoever. So it's very kind of detached, but at the same time you're drawn into it. And then there's that end scene with Tommy Lee Jones that everybody just kind of like, what the hell's going on here?
Yeah, that's a weird way to end a movie.
It is. Yeah, it is. But I mean, it kind of makes sense for his character and like what he's seen and like how things are changing and how he represents like that old, because it is like a modern Western. So he kind of represents like that old West guy where, even on the crime scene, they ride in on horses and then they're investigating. And then he's coming up against stuff that's like kind of beyond him. And he's feeling like overwhelmed with the things he's seen and the changes he's seen in the country. So, that's kind of what the title's about. It's really like a changing of the guard and how, at a certain point in this country, like things started to get a little bit darker. And, maybe the Vietnam War and the fallout from that had a little bit to do with that.
Yeah. Look at this. Look at you go.
Yeah. Hey, that's my thesis.
So other than watching, so I ended up watching that, and then I totally didn't get around to Animal Kingdom. So we'll pick that up for next week. Yep. Also been watching, all caught up on the next season 4 of Better Call Saul. And
okay,
have you been watching any of them yet?
Not yet.
So you could tell, like, I like it. It's starting to progress. It's just a really slow show. So
yeah,
and it continues that pace, but they've brought in a lot more Breaking Bad characters.
Okay,
a lot more. So probably 4 or 5 characters from Breaking Bad are now in the show, and you can kind of start seeing the timelines are starting to merge. So you're seeing events that don't have to do with Saul, who's actually almost kind of like, a third of the character stories here. You're seeing him become Jimmy, so to speak, or Jimmy becomes Saul, and why that's the case. But now that Gus is back, and then you kind of start to, Mike's obviously been a big part of that, and you're starting to see, the involvement from the cartel and all these things, and they're even starting to do like flashbacks back to Breaking Bad that are reshoots or new shots. So you're starting to see, like, I don't know, I'm not going to give anything away, but like during the last 4th or 5th season of Breaking Bad, you're going to see other things that were happening as a flashback in this one that was not filmed for the original one. So they went back and refilmed these things, saying like, oh, now you're starting to connect the dots a little bit. And so I kind of feel like season 5, this is going to probably wrap it up after season 5, which I'm going to predict. Pretty easy prediction, I think. And I think that the timelines are going to overlap from season 5 to season 1 of Breaking Bad. And I think
it's going to end and then set it up for Breaking Bad. But
it's not so. I don't think it's going to be a setup for it. I think it would, like, where this would end would kind of be around season 2 or 3 of Breaking Bad.
Okay. And
I think what's going to happen, and this is because obviously, what's this Poyos dude? He's starting to kind of like build his empire. That's where season 2 and 3 were going, or season 3 was going. And Gus. And I think that they're going to introduce Walter White into this, into Better Call Saul by having his meth surface. And that's I think that's what they're going to do is because they've hinted at they're talking about the purity of product and all these types of things, and all these themes are starting to come up, and all these kinds of processes, with that whole side. And I think that's how they're going to kind of say like, oh, now Walt is out there, right? That's how you're going to know the timelines are working, is because when the blue meth shows up. So
you heard it here first, Harsch Review podcast listeners.
That's what I'm thinking. So we'll see. So I'm excited to see like when that happens, because you kind of know where you're at in the timeline now. Like this season has made it really clear where you're at with the Breaking Bad timeline, but they do it in a very clever way. It's not like what you would think. So yeah, you're just kind of seeing characters, environments, decisions being made that when you watched Breaking Bad, those decisions were fully, mature. But now you're kind of seeing people start to go down a certain path, and then, you kind of get a feel for it. So it's really cool to see that. The least interesting thing to me is Saul and his journey, because it's just taken so damn long.
That's my biggest complaint with season 3. It was just like, come on, you know what I mean?
You're still there. That's the thing. It's
just like his conflict with his brother, and then this conflict with the dude who runs the law firm. I was just getting kind of tired of that. I mean, it's like ready to we're really seeing it. Odenkirk's great. I mean, he's carrying the character well, but I think it's just the writing is kind of bogging down the progression of the show. But it's still a great show, but it's just like, come on, dude. We get it. Like, let's just launch him into this shit and let's just go.
Yeah, I think
a lot of setup,
I think that they're, I don't know. I think Vince Gilligan is trying to take a different approach to this show, and he wants it to be much slower so he can extract more from it. So from season 1 to, let's just say season 5 of Better Call Saul is going to happen over a shorter period of time than season 1 to season 5 of Breaking Bad, which moved pretty quickly. And so I think that they just want to do more of a character story. They don't want to just repeat themselves, so they're intentionally keeping the pace more of a slow grind.
Right.
And I can feel like they're finally starting to turn the dial up, but it's still not at the pace that, I was hoping. Because then what happens is they do too quick in the back half of a season. First half of the season is too slow, then the back half is too rushed. It's not paced well enough. So I'm curious to see how this one goes, but it's better. It's getting a lot better in a lot of respects. So it's definitely worth getting back into if you haven't caught up or anything like that. It's still beautiful shot, well written, well acted. I mean, some of the best made TV out there are how they make these episodes. So huge fan.
They might as well call it Get Better Call Saul.
Yeah, I know.
Get it?
And I still would give it a strong rating. It's just you almost kind of have to wait until the whole thing's done and look at it in hindsight. But because they're starting to really move into this Breaking Bad universe, and are not hiding it anymore, rather than just flirting with it.
Yeah,
you're now almost kind of just anticipating, okay, when's it going to happen? What's going to be the thing? And so I think that's what's kind of hurting a little bit.
Okay.
All right. So the big thing I wanted to talk to you, moving on, is about Tom Clancy.
Yes.
And this came up because the long anticipated show starring Jim from The Office, Jack Ryan, Tom Clancy's Jack Ryan, on Amazon came out. I have since watched every episode and am ready to talk about it.
Just came out.
Yeah, well, I'm a big Tom Clancy fan. I've liked a lot of his stuff, and so
I like him too.
But so let's just talk about Tom Clancy for a second. So he's he's a Baltimore-born novelist.
Yes,
and kind of known for military espionage, military science, very detail-oriented, authentic Cold War-esque type movies and things like that. So he's written a lot of stories and characters, many that were adapted into movies and video games, and obviously, millions and millions of books sold. So when I first started watching Tom Clancy stuff as a kid, I didn't really associate Tom Clancy, the brand, with any of it until I kind of got into the video game world. And that's where the Tom Clancy brand for me was really okay, so what's this dude's deal about? And then you kind of made the connection between Tom Clancy and the movies. So, I mean, some of the games that he's made that I've really enjoyed would be Rainbow Six, Ghost Recon franchise, which was really, really cool games. Some of my favorites, Splinter Cell, which is another one.
Oh, I love Splinter Cell. That was just...
It's a lot of fun.
It's a lot of I just remember playing that game and just growing impatient with it, because I mean you really have to sneak around the whole time. There's one part where there's a dog and he starts snorting around where you're hiding under a truck.
Yeah,
and then you have the option to strangle the shit out of him or whatever. But I'd always just grow impatient and be like, well, fuck it. Let's just run through everything and see what happens, Because it's like it's like a hallway. Like it takes you 2 hours just to get to the end of this freaking hallway. It's like you got to sneak down it. And then it's like, you know what? I'm going to go for it. And you just like trip every alarm, run through, and then sometimes
climb the wall and you're good.
Sometimes I would make it. Like
a little sound.
Honestly, but I love that game. I wish that game would come back. I mean, I'm not like a big multiplayer guy, so I'm into those like covert kind of mission games.
Sure.
They're always fun to me because you could just kind of play it for a while, then stop and take a step back, and then play it again later. So
yeah, the last one that came out was 2013, I think. Blacklist for a Splinter Cell. They've been on Xboxes and stuff. So it's just like the Hitman games as well, to where you have to like walk really slow and sneak around and hide in the shadows, and then at some point you're just like, yeah, fuck it, I'm going for it, and then you every mission turns in that way.
Right, all the alarms are going off, and everybody's like shooting at you. It's kind of exciting. It's a nice little adrenaline rush.
Yeah, it's fun. So he's made a handful of movies that I'll talk about here in a second. But first I want to kind of discuss the Jack Ryan show that's on Amazon. So we saw this marketed last year. They've been talking about it for a while.
Yeah,
and so now it's finally out. It's very good in a lot of respects, and then it kind of is not so great in some others. So what I mean by that is it's very clean, it's very polished, and I guess the way that they use Jim's character in it is kind of interesting to me. And so the reason why I guess I say that is that that's John Krasinski.
Well, no, we need to stick true to form.
Stick to
Sean.
Jim.
Yeah, call people by their most famous role names.
Sure. So here's
For example,
why
Rami Malek is Mr. Robot.
Yeah, Mr. Robot. So here's why it was a difficult transition for me to get used to him playing Jack Ryan. We go all the way back to Jack Ryan, introduced to him, I believe it was in The Hunt for Red October. I don't think it was in The Ghost of Flight 401. And then you've got Patriot Games with Harrison Ford. He did Clear and Present Danger. And then The Sum of All Fears with Ben Affleck. And then you've got Jack Ryan, Shadow Recruit 2014 with Chris Pine. And then now Krasinski's the next Jack Ryan. So the one I'm most used to is like the Harrison Ford version. That's the one that I liked the most, obviously. Yeah. And he's a much more seasoned, older guy. And this one's almost like a reboot of Jack Ryan, the character. So he's not that person that you've seen in all the movies. They don't really establish that too well. So if you're a big fan of all the movies, you go and seen it, you think on day one he's a badass, but he's not. Is just an analyst that's an ex-Marine that hasn't really seen action in a long time and is very hesitant and very worried. He's not he's just a different persona. So it's almost like you're seeing them reboot this character without really making that obvious.
So you're more of like a behind the desk kind of guy, really.
That's how it starts, right? Is he's behind the desk, which is very similar to how the other one started. So like Hunt for Red October is very similar with Baldwin. It was not used to being out in the field, but he got pulled into it because of his knowledge, right? His knowledge of the Russian, the relationship he had with Connery or whatever. I don't remember exactly what it was. Same kind of thing with Harrison Ford in the Patriot Games. And so, but they seem to embrace that new persona or role rather quickly. Very similar kind of reintroduction to where with the Amazon series. So it takes them too many episodes to kind of like start embodying what we know Jack Ryan, the character, to be. Krasinski's really good at acting with his eyes and his facial emotion. But he doesn't have strong chops, I think, physically in other areas. It really looks like it's just Jim in the office. That's not, you're just waiting for him to look at the camera. He's kind of like one-dimensional in a lot of respects. So that takes a little to get used to. We saw him in Quiet Place, and he did a good job in that because the setting kind of called for different expectations.
Right.
But here, seeing him work in a different office and kind of dressing the same, although he's all jacked, it does look like Jim a lot of times. Obviously, it's a character he played, but he just delivers his lines and stuff like very much the same kind of way. That starts to go away as the season progresses. But early on, you see a little too many similarities, and then, to kind of like to summarize what I felt about it is it was a little underwhelming for how long we've had to wait and to only get 8 episodes. And they do a lot of on location type of shots, and some of them are really, really impressive. And then other ones, you kind of feel like they honed in the fake, Middle East town kind of vibe. The surprising thing that was Wendell Pierce.
Oh yeah,
and he's just as much of a character as Krasinski is in it. They're partners.
He's great.
So if you're a fan of The Wire, I don't know if anybody on this show is. Wendell Pierce is pretty funny in this.
He's great.
Yeah, but he kind of plays the same character he does in The Wire. So yeah. I know you'll love it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's good. It's nice to see Amazon start stepping up the game. It just lacks something. I don't know exactly what it is. It just felt a little too polished compared to some Netflix series and things like that. Like you almost kind of felt like there's episodes where Krasinski's not in it that much.
Huh.
And you really kind of felt like they were on a lean budget in some areas. And yeah, I know. He's not in it as much as you would think, which is kind of strange. He's in every episode, but he's not the main character for at least half the series. Like the focus is on other stuff. So his presence is just very empty for a while. And yeah, it's just kind of interesting. I don't know. I think Amazon still needs to kind of figure it out. I still enjoyed it. It's well written. It has some really clever, twists and things like that, and it's entertaining and it's decent action here or there. But really, in the end, I think it's just it needs to be a little bit dirtier and grittier. It's just a little too clean.
Yeah.
So that's my take. I'm curious to see what others have to say about it.
I'm gonna check it out. It's been on my list for a while, and I was like, well, when's this thing coming out? Because we have been talking about it for a little while. So
yeah, all year. What are your favorite Clancy movies?
I really like Hunt for Red October.
Yeah, that's probably the best movie all around. I would say, right?
I think Baldwin does a great job of that Jack Ryan character. Connery's good in that one. I did like Patriot Games, and like pretty much the two that Harrison Ford did were good. Didn't see the one with Chris Pine. I think he's good, but I didn't see the one with him and with Ben Affleck. He's just like kind of like a whatever.
Morgan Freeman, Ben Affleck. It's actually not the story is actually not bad.
Yeah.
Ben Affleck is just so one dimensional. That's where he started his action hero path.
Yes.
The story's not bad, and it's an entertaining movie. He's just the least entertaining part of it.
Right, but he should be entertaining. It's like all about Jack Ryan, so it's this character that Tom Clancy made that's, it could be like a James Bond, but he's more of like a, like we said earlier, behind the desk kind of guy. And I think with you need to have that like big budget to kind of do this stuff if it takes place in different locations. So that's why it's kind of disappointing when you said, the Amazon show doesn't really kind of gets a little cheap.
Well, it's not that what you see on screen is cheap. It's that what you're watching, I guess, just kind of is. You can kind of tell like it doesn't feel as authentic. It feels a little bit like a Hollywood set,
Okay.
So it's very clean, and that's, I guess, this is the difference. Like when you watch other shows that take place like in the Middle East or something like that, it feels a little bit more authentic, like you're really there. And so that's just the only difference. Plus, and this isn't a spoiler, but like their bad terrorist guy, they kind of like position as like the next Osama bin Laden. He lives in this giant palace, like out in the middle of the desert, and they're like, we can't find him anywhere. And it's like the giant, it's the biggest palace out there. And I'm like, okay, come on.
Look for Harsch Castle out in the desert.
That's exactly what it looks like, man. It's huge. But there's some really clever things in there. Like I really liked the villains and his story and his character and stuff like that. They did a really good job with that side of it.
Nice.
And I think Krasinski is a good pick to play at Jack Ryan because he does have the right chops and persona to do it. They just didn't use him right. Maybe he just needs to be more in the cut, getting more dirty and getting more involved in the action. So there's a lot of character development on his past rather than his motivations for the present, so it's a little interesting.
But if they're looking to go long term with this series, it's kind of like they're going to drag out that first season just to do a lot of development and story, so it's going to be kind of slow, but hopefully not like Breaking or Call Saul slow, where it takes like 3 seasons to develop your character and show the motivations where you can easily do it in 1 or 2.
Yeah, like the last scene, like if you just edited over that Moby song that's used at the end of every Bourne movie, it would have like worked perfectly, to where it's like, oh, here we go, there's another one, and then the credits rock up.
Look what we found.
So it kind of had a lot of the Jason Bourne type vibe to it, but without all the shaky camera action and fighting and stuff.
And I kind of like that shaky camera action, That's kind of what makes me like those Bourne movies.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
Yeah,
so I'm a big fan of Hunt for Red October, Clear and Present Danger, Patriot Games are a lot of fun. And then the Chris Pine Shadow Recruit, it's kind of like another reboot. I think they're trying to see if they could pick up another franchisee out of him, and it didn't really stick. When you went from Pierce Brosnan, James Bond to Horse Muscles, Daniel Craig, and that type of feel that it had, where it just got like dirty and gritty, like that's kind of what it felt like with Chris Pine. He brought like a different energy to it, but at the core of it, Jack Ryan's kind of like, he's an analyst. He's an intelligence officer. He's not like the number one combat kind of guy. And Chris Pine
just happens to get caught up in this stuff.
Yeah, and so he's got the background to like get through it, but it's not his preference. You kind of feel like it's an everyday man forced to survive in this setting. Chris Pine was kind of like more embrace the action side of it, and not as much of the Jack Ryan intellect side.
Okay,
at least that's what it felt like for me.
Okay, yeah,
nice. But check it out. We'll talk about it next time. I'm curious to see what you think.
I'll watch it this week.
Sweet.
All right.
What's left?
Well, I know it's our 40th episode. I wanted to introduce some new games. So this is all for you, Sean.
New games.
Some new games. So I went and ordered some books on eBay to kind of help us out with these games. Interesting reads, nonetheless. I'll probably be reading these books or thumbing through them, just outside of the podcast realm. But 2 games I have for you today. They won't last too long. Okay. The first one, I'm going to be reading you some critiques, and you're going to have to guess what the movie is. This particular book I'm holding in my hands right now is written by none other than Mr. Roger Ebert, and the title of the book is I Hated This Movie. And basically for about 300 pages, he just slams all these movies that he did not like, and he makes some really good points. I like his writing style. He definitely roasts a lot of these movies in like very well-deserved ways. So what I'm going to do is I went and picked 3 of them. I'm just going to read you maybe a couple paragraphs, and you're going to have to guess the movie. The only thing I will tell you, Sean, is the year of the movie.
All right. So wish me luck here.
Yeah. So you ready for the first one?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. This one might be a little easy. This movie came out in 1994, and here's what Mr. Ebert had to say. The movie basically has one joke, which is the title character's weird, nerdy strangeness. If you laugh at this joke, chances are you laugh at Jerry Lewis, too, and I can sympathize with you, even if I can't understand you. I found the movie a long, unfunny slog through an impenetrable plot. Kids might like it, real little kids. What's the movie, Sean?
94.
Yep.
Oh boy. So it's a character-driven comedy, I'm going to assume. Probably like Ace Ventura.
Very good, Sean.
Is it?
Ding, ding, ding. Yep.
Yeah. All right. All right. Look at that.
All right.
Was,
nice work.
I gotta stretch out a little bit here. I got this.
Yeah. All right. Here's another one for you. This movie came out in the year 1997. Sticking to the 90s movies for right now. These creatures have a lot of stuff in their mouths. Not only the tongue and their famous teeth, but another little head on a stalk with smaller teeth. Still to be determined is whether the littler head has a still tinier head inside of it, and so on. Like the bugs and Starship Troopers, these things are an example of specialization. They have evolved over the eons into creatures adapted for one purpose only. I got a telephone message that Inside Edition wanted to ask me about this movie and what impact it would have on the careers of the stars. Financially, it will help. The main star remains the only woman who can open an action picture. Artistically, the film will have no impact at all. It's a 9 days wonder, a geek show designed to win a weekend or two at the box office and then fade from memory. Try this test. Yeah, right. Try this test. How often do you think about Jurassic Park: The Lost World? What's the movie he's talking about, Sean?
Gee, okay, what year is it again?
So this is 1997.
Okay. 97. We're shit. This is a tough one.
I gave you a little clue in that last paragraph. You want to reread that one?
Say it again, the clue?
Basically, it says, financially will help. The main actress remains the only woman who can open an action picture. And just think back to 97 when there weren't like too many of those.
Yeah. Yeah, that was, I mean, that's a tough one. Which female lead can open an action picture?
Right.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right, this one would be Alien Resurrection.
Oh, I was going Sigourney Weaver, but then I didn't know what year that one came out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Alien Resurrection.
Yeah.
All right, you're doing
the
all
way
right.
you kind of were describing it, I started thinking of like Mars Attacks or something, but now I was like,
oh, okay. Yeah, that would have been a good guess. All right, got one more for you. This film is from 1998. Tell this book was written in the 90s.
yeah.
All right, here we go. There are several red digital readout scenes in which bombs tick down to zero. Do bomb designers do that for the convenience of interested onlookers who happen to be standing next to a bomb? There's even a retread of the classic scene when they're trying to disconnect the timer and they have to decide whether to cut the red wire or the blue wire. The movie has forgotten that this is not a terrorist bomb, but a standard issue U.S. military bomb being defused by a military guy who is on board specifically because he knows about this bomb. A guy like that, the first thing he should know is red or blue. This movie is loud, ugly, and fragmented. Action sequences are cut together at bewildering speed out of hundreds of short edits so that we can't see for sure what's happening, or how, or why. Important special effects shots have a murkiness of detail, and the movie cuts away before we get a good look. The few dramatic scenes consist of the sonorous recitation of ancient cliches. You're already heroes. Only near the end, when every second counts, does the movie slow down. Life on Earth is about to end, but the hero delays saving the planet in order to recite cornball farewell platitudes. What's the movie, Sean?
I know this one. I have to know this one.
You do?
It sounds really, really, really familiar with this bomb expert. Kind of reminds me back to some of our, talking about Jack Ryan and all that kind of stuff with those movies.
Right.
And then they have all those stupid, red one or blue one, that kind of stuff. Like it's just drawing all these visuals. Wasn't at the point, I can't remember which character it was, but wasn't that why What's His Head was on? I just saw this actually a few weeks ago.
This movie?
or at least what I think it is. I'm gonna say Armageddon.
Sean, you are correct.
All right, yeah, that's
Good
where they're
job,
on
sir.
the. Steve Buscemi's in it, and he's like the nut job, and then Bruce Willis, and what's that other guy's name? He's the guy that was in
Fargo.
Dark Knight where Heath Ledger puts the grenade in his mouth and then pulls the string, at the
I know
beginning.
what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's the guy
he's the blind guy in Contact.
Yes, that guy. That's
Yeah.
Him and Willis were fighting over it, and then that was the big debate.
He's like he's in that big title of like that guy, because you've seen him in all these movies, but you don't know his name.
Yeah, who's that guy?
I know you're talking about. Yeah, I know that guy, but you don't know him. So
yeah, and Lethal Weapon had one of those bombs, like which one to cut kind of things.
Right.
That was a tough one, but I just had to like stall while I could remember what scene I was watching that had that big scene in it.
You did good, Sean.
Yeah, 2 out of 3, not bad.
2 out of 3. You did good. So this one's going to be a little bit more creative for you. What I have planned for you next.
Okay, let's do it.
So what I now hold in my hands is Leonard Maltin's movie guide. It's about 1,600 pages long, and it's a pretty good book if you want like a quick reference to movies. It doesn't really give you a whole lot of in-depth stuff, but it does give you some basic information. One thing I found was thumbing through this book. There's a lot of movies I've never heard of, and wouldn't even bother to look up because it probably wouldn't be there in the first place. So what I'm going to do, Sean, is I picked 2 titles out of this book that movies I've never heard of, and you are going to give me a short synopsis of what you think this movie might be about. So you're going to have to be very creative and come up with something, and then I will read you the actual synopsis or plot of the film.
All right.
Does your job make sense here?
As long as I have not seen the movie,
I don't think you
plot.
Have.
Okay.
I don't think you have. And these are a little bit older, and I know you're having an aversion to older movies, like movies that were made before you were born. So I think we're in safe territory.
All right.
All right. So this first film is from 1953. Title of the film, The 5,000 Fingers of Dr. T. Sean, what is this movie about?
5,000 Fingers of Dr. T goes into the story about a guy named Douglas T who became this serial killer doctor. And he was known for drugging up his patients and slowly killing them. And then when he would do that, he would remove their fingers and add them to his collection. Wow. So that's basically what this movie's about.
Sounds like the guy from Darkman.
Yeah. Just take the fucking elephant.
Well, Sean, that's a noble stab, but the movie's actually about the following. A boy who hates to practice the piano has a vivid nightmare about a land where his officious teacher, Dr. Terwilliger, rules over hundreds of boys in a gigantic keyboard. Imaginative fantasy conceived by none other than Dr. Seuss, with clever songs by Seuss and Frederick Hollander. Major weakness, conventional grown-up leads played by then-popular performers Healy and Hayes. Missed that reference. Look for George Chakiris, don't know who that is, among the dancers. Okay, so that's it.
That movie sounds terrible.
Yeah, so skip that one. All right, got one more for you, Sean.
All right, let's hear it.
So you're going to have to give me what this movie is about, and it was made in 1970. It's a German film by Werner Herzog, who's directed,
I like
among
him.
other things. Me too. So I'm assuming this is one of his early ventures, and this film is called Even Dwarfs Started Small. Sean, what's this movie about?
It's everybody knows what this one's about. So Even Dwarfs Started Small. It's kind of like the reverse Benjamin Button, where there's a child that was born and was supposed to be a little person,
right?
But continued to grow and grow and grow until his body succumbed to the weight of his skeletal frame. So it's a really sad tale, but that's what it's about.
It sounds quite tragic. Actually, Sean, it's about it's an unusual, disturbing, truly unsettling parable about dwarfs and midgets confined to a barren correctional institution who literally take over the asylum.
All right, I'm going to look into that.
Okay.
I didn't know when you were done. I was like, that's it?
Yeah, no, that sounds like something I would check out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, fun games, right?
Yeah, that's a bit twisted, but I like that. Those movies I would never watch.
Right, so this book is chock full of them, so we're going to have a lot of fun in the coming weeks and months, Sean.
All right, cool. I like it.
Yeah. All right, so that's what I got for you for our games.
All right, well let's close up episode 40. Glad we've made it this far. Like I said earlier, just want to thank everybody for your time and listening and supporting us over at our social channels. You can find us everywhere you want to stay connected at the Harsch Review, HARSCH Review. We also have a website if you need to read into any additional stuff that we talk about or post here. And if you would love to support Ryan and I's creative endeavors with this podcast, you can go over to patreon.com/the Harsch Review. For as little as $1 a month, you can show some love and help pay for these hosting fees and the books that Ryan is buying to ask me questions I don't have the answers to. Outside of that, we'll be back next week, episode 41, where we'll finish up our weekly movie challenge and be talking about what's new. I've got a couple things cooking for 41, so we'll see you guys next week. My name is Sean.
And I'm Ryan.
Have a good one.